What's up, beautiful people? Thank you for tuning in to Beats Per Minute podcast, where hip hop, health, and heart are in sync. I am your host, Miss Thursday, and I am here with my co host, Tayrn. And as promised, we are continuing our conversation about hip hop and grief with Miss Kyle Eustice. Now, I would like to give a disclaimer before the conversation. If you or anyone you know are dealing with grief and this conversation is triggering for you, I want you to reach out. I want you to reach out to your family members. I want you to reach out to counselors. And if you need to, you can reach out to us. We understand that it can be very hard to have these type of conversations, but it's very important. You never get through what you're not willing to go through. So grief is as normal part of the life experience as happiness or joy. Learning how to grieve properly is the biggest thing. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this next episode.
Bring that beat back. Clap your hands, do the beat, y'all. Clap your hands, do the beat, y'all. That beat, y'all.
First up to the mic is our dear friend and someone that I have just come to love and just get to know just over the years. Unfortunately, we met after my brother passed, but she's been so instrumental in just helping me like kind of move through this whole industry thing and just have a laugh now and then. And I just appreciate her. So I want to introduce you guys to my girl, Kyle Eustice. What's up,
Aw.
Kyle?
What's up, Ada? You gonna make me cry in the first 2 seconds
No,
of this
I can't do that.
podcast?
Later.
No, thank you so much for such a sweet introduction, and it's just been a pleasure to get to know you over the last few years. I am sad that that's how we connected, but
Yeah,
you know what? In a way, it's like your brother is still bringing people together, and like he did with his music, and that's a beautiful thing, right? So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So tell the people who you are and what all you do because you're so fabulous and all over the place. And yeah, let them know what you do.
Wow. Well, so okay, after 6 years at Hip Hop DX and Warner Music, I resigned in October and I took a position as the senior editor at Hitz magazine in LA. And I have been freelancing for magazines like Thrasher Skateboarding Magazine since 2010, High Time since 2017. I'm with Rock the Bells. Um, I contribute to Spin Magazine, and y'all, you heard it here first. I'm working on my first story for Rolling Stone right now, so that's why I've been. That's why.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's why I've been kind of busy today. I'm just trying to like knock it out and wow them.
Yes.
But yeah, so I've just been at it for a really long time. Like prior to DX, I was the weekend editor at The Source, and I write for Wax Poetics. I've just been doing this for a very long time. One of my favorite jobs is working for Chuck D, of course, of Public Enemy, who I've been with for 12 years or something like that. We do like a little radio show together, and I'm putting together his website and I mean all sorts of stuff. So I'm just staying busy.
Always, always.
Mhm.
I saw earlier a couple things, but I won't get into that because I'm gonna let you be able to do your thing. So on this first episode, we are starting it out with what does hip hop mean to us? Like what kind of made us get into hip hop? And I know you probably kind of told that story, but just, briefly let the
Mhm.
people know like what brought you into the whole hip hop culture.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting being a white girl from Omaha, Nebraska, like in the middle of America where it was really hard to get our hands on hip hop early on. I have Yo MTV Raps to thank for that. I remember being a little kid, hearing Crisscross for the first time, A Tribe Called Quest with Busta Rhymes, and just kind of getting a different feeling than I got from other music. You know, it was really exciting. It was new. It was fresh. But it wasn't until I think I was in fourth grade, when my dad, he's a whole other topic, but he's a musician as well.
Right.
And he brought out License to Ill by the Beastie Boys. And I remember being like, what is this? All I remember is that it made my mom really mad. And I was like, all right, maybe these guys are onto something. And I fell in love with the beats right away, like the 808, the kick drums, like all of that just really kind of enticed me as a kid. And I think too, like something about the irreverence, like I went to Catholic school my whole life. And I liked
Interesting.
and I liked when people broke the rules and, you know, like didn't follow like what you're supposed to do in life. And so I think the Beastie Boys being kind of like their selves kind of attracted that, you know, me to that as well. And so then after that I started getting into like Tone Loc, Young MC, and Run DMC. So
Yeah.
that was really like my early introduction. And then from there, I mean, I've always liked all kinds of music because of my father. So he got me into everything. I mean, you name it, like the Clash, the Specials, like, oh, you know, ska music from England, all kinds of things. So I kind of had this really wide net that I was casting and just getting into everything. But hip hop was like, this is for us, you know, like
Yeah.
this is for our generation, us kids. And it was just exciting. Same with punk rock. So it was like kind of like hip hop and punk rock kind of at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so for me, I realized that even though I was kind of always exposed to hip hop with the first generation because of my brother, it was Roxy and Shantae and UTFO and that whole group that really became like when I'm like, oh wait, this is different. And Eric B. and Rakim was it for me. You know,
Mhm.
when Eric B. for President came out, that's when I became a hip hop fan. It was no longer, this is the music I'm hearing, but this is like the music that I want to hear, you know? And
Yeah.
so that's when it changed for me. What about you, Taryn? You know, we
Well,
raised you well.
I was gonna say, being your daughter, Latina.
Listen.
I was gonna say that. No, that would be. I would say that it was between ooh, you and my dad, just because, like, okay, so I would say one of the earliest songs I remember is like that's the me part two, right?
Mm,
So that's Jay-Z and mine,
you're
right?
right.
And so then it became a thing where like,
I'm sorry.
well, yes, okay. And it became a thing where it was just like I noticed that the older I would go, it would become a thing where people would be like, "What you know about this?" And I'd be like, "I know,
Yeah.
I know about this."
You put them in their place.
Listen, this is the child that was like one, and her and my best friend would be like belting that thing like every time we was in the car together. And she's like in her, you know, car seat just rocking back here to anything.
That's so
And,
cute.
you know, and at that point in time, that's when like Nori had put out his single project. So like I was constantly listening to Super Thug like everywhere. And she was back there just dancing to it.
Dancing a super
That
thug.
much has changed. Yeah, you know.
Oh my God, I love it. So it really it is like it's through the parents, right? And I feel like, you know, I was literally just on the phone, well, on a Zoom with DJ Jazzy Jeff, and I asked him like, where did this start for you? And it was absolutely in the home. You know, he had 5 siblings and he was the youngest, and then his dad would play one kind of music, his other brother would play another kind of music, and that's really where you start to form your musical taste, you know. So
Yeah. That was actually even my story. You know, my mom was the church musician, so we, of course, was exposed to a lot of gospel.
Mhm.
My oldest sister was into the more contemporary gospel, which at that time was like the Andre Crouches, the Clark sisters, that level of music. And then my other brother, him and his girlfriend listened to, like what was on the radio,
Mhm.
the little older R&B and then what was kind of coming out. So like I was like, you know, really in love with like, the Angela Bofields and Melissa Morgan and stuff like that. And then of course Collins was, in the hip hop.
Yeah.
And then my grandma was like heavy into country music. Like she loved country music. So
I
we're
love
sitting
it.
there, we're watching all of the, like Oak Ridge Boys specials and I can't remember the
That's
sisters that,
that's
but
better than my grandma. She liked like Lawrence Welk. Do you remember like
well,
the
see, my mom, when she wasn't playing gospel, she was like heavy into like what you would consider to be the elevator music. So I have a deep appreciation for like Billy Joel and people like that. Like that, I'm, you know, yeah. I was trying to actually, I was supposed to, I went to like a tribute band concert for the Bee Gees. I was so excited about it and it didn't work out. But anyway.
That is hilarious. And you know what's interesting too is like just thinking back to different households. Like when I was at my grandma's house, there was the oldie station was always on. There was never a moment where it was just like silent. Like and the same with my house, like my parents' house. My dad was always playing music. So there was always something. And I'll be walking in the grocery store and like some random song will come on. I'm like, how do I know the words to all of this? Like, I don't listen to this shit.
Deep
And but
down
it's
in your
yeah,
soul.
but it's like somewhere, somewhere I got exposed to it and it just sat in my brain. Like I feel like most of my brain is song lyrics at this point.
And it's really interesting because yeah, it's like you might not have heard a song for years, and then
Mhm.
something will remind you, the beat, it comes on, and like you're singing like lyric from lyric, like you've been, listening to it like every day. So one of the things I was telling the girls was that I have noticed over the years since Collins passed that you have really taken on the responsibility of making sure that the artists that have passed away are honored in such a way, and it's not just some like little quick, blurb. Your
Mhm.
information is always factual. um Different times you reached out to the family like myself to make sure that we had a say, and that will forever, I can't thank you enough for that, because a lot of times I believe when artists pass away, the family may not be known. And so the family may like that, which, I never had a problem with. But when you see, different people wanting to give their, respects and their, condolences, and usually they'll find someone to give it to. And
Mhm.
so when people started realizing like, oh yeah, these are, this is his sister, like so many people started hitting me up, DM me, sending me messages to, just your brother was this, he used to be this, all these different things. And that meant a lot. So, as a, an artist, family member, I really want to thank you for just the care and the concern and just the way that you handle, telling their stories with grace is so appreciative. Do you feel like you have become that for hip hop? Like that you become the voice of the voiceless in a lot of ways, and also that you feel like you've taken on the responsibility of making sure that when the artists are passed, have passed away, that
Mhm.
you're making sure that the world knows it and that they're not forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, until you really pointed it out, I didn't really think about that. And I think you're absolutely right. Like people come to me when people pass away. You know, I broke the story about Trugoy passing away recently. I broke the story about DJ K Slay passing away. And then just recently, Bill Adler,
Mhm.
who was with Def Jam, Def Jam's first publicist, reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, this photographer, Butch Green, just passed away. He shot the first Run DMC album cover. Nobody's going to give him any attention. Will you do this? And I ended up speaking to Rev Run and to Bill and to some other people about his passing. And I ended up writing an obituary for Rock the Bells. And I think it's just so important to give people their flowers both now and when they pass away. And I think that I really care deeply about the pioneers of this culture getting their just due, because I think one of the most blatant examples of someone almost being forgotten in a way, is Jimmy Spicer. And when
Yeah.
Jimmy Spicer passed away, I had been helping him with his GoFundMe. He was battling cancer. He didn't have money to even pay for it. And here is this guy who is a pioneer of this culture and couldn't afford to get medical care. And that's when it started to really hit me that, like, we need to do something about this. And I want to make sure that I'm vocal about it. And, I do hope that Swiss Beats like lives up to his promise of creating this fund for, pioneers of hip hop that, that need help with healthcare or their bills or whatever it is. I think we need to see something like that happen sooner than later, so we don't have to keep writing these obituaries, like so often.
Yeah. And that's exactly the reason why I'm doing this. My, desire to help other artists not be in my brother's position is why I wanted to start this podcast, why it's called what it's called, and why we'll tackle what we're tackling, because I want to bring, some health literacy and health equity, and just be able to even collaborate with those that are trying to do something. I love the idea of what Chuck and KRS-One and MC Light and all of them are doing with the Hip Hop Alliance. And I want to see more people talking about it, because it's so important.
Yep.
It really is sad when someone who has completely created like the backdrop to our lives sometimes, you then have to see that family do a GoFundMe or, whatever. And immediately when someone passes away, the first thing that all the radio stations start playing the music, that doesn't benefit the family. It doesn't benefit the family. It might make us feel good, but it doesn't benefit us because we'll never see anything from that.
Yep.
And I was so sad because we talked about this, when Dave passed away, like it was like, like that was, De La Soul was like major for me, growing up. Like they were so different. The whole native tongues, that whole situation was just like, a breath of fresh air for me. And it was just cool to see people just be themselves.
Yeah.
And I was so excited when I saw that they, had won, and that, they were about to be able to start streaming. And then this
Yeah.
happened. And I'm like, God, that's just, it's just, and
Let
he's
me tell you, I've been covering that story since 2019, and Maceo, and we've had so many conversations about Tommy Boy, and I've done so many stories about it, been so vocal about getting their catalog back. And then when this happened, when they finally did, they asked me to write their bio at the top of the year. Like, I could not have been more honored, right? I was so excited. 16 days before Dave died, I interviewed him.
Yeah.
16 days. And it had been the first time we talked in years. We had such an amazing conversation about grief, because as we've experienced it with my mother. And he had lost his mother, his father, his brother, his cousin. I mean, just so much grief. And they talk about it on their last album, the song Here and After with Gorillaz.
Yeah.
And we really talked about that song. So I'm skiing on February 12th at Winter Park, I believe, Colorado. I'm just get done. I'm going to sit down, drink some coffee, like chill. And I get the call. And it was a rumor at this point. And I was like, no, like this can't be true. Call up the manager right away. He doesn't answer, goes straight to voicemail. I'm like, oh no, that's not a good
Don't look
sign.
good. Yeah.
That's not a good sign. Call again, straight to voicemail. He texts me back and he said, I'm gonna call you. And I said, tell me, is it true? And he's like, what did you hear? I said, I heard this. Silence. I'm like, oh man. So minutes go by. I'm like so anxious. I'm sitting here staring at my phone. And sure enough, it's true. And so I'm literally driving. My husband's driving. I'm driving down this mountain, typing away, trying to get the story out there, devastated because I know that in just a few short days, their catalog is
Right.
going up, right? And Dave's not going to be there to see it. I mean, I don't know what kind of sick joke that is, but it just felt like the most cruel timing to me. And again, I want him to be a person who gets his just due. I want people to know what a special person he is. And what he did for the culture. And I mean, obviously people know. You saw the outpouring of love, but like I cannot believe it.
Yeah. I actually, sometimes have a different thought process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like he had did his part
Mm-hmm.
and then it was time for him to go, but he
Mm-hmm.
did what he needed to do for his brothers to get what
Mm-hmm.
they needed to get while they were here. And let me tell you, like, I don't know if he saw them on what was it, Jimmy Fallon, but oh
Oh,
my God,
girl.
they
I
killed.
set my alarm. I was like, I'm going to be watching this when it happens. And yeah, I cried. I mean, I
Yeah.
cried. And I could see it's interesting because I said to my husband, I said, Questlove looks so sad right now. And it was like right before they kind of put the camera back on him at the very, very end. But then he like put on a smile. And then sure enough, the next day, I don't know if you saw his post, but he was saying, I cried like a baby. And I was like, I knew it because it was so moving and so
Yeah.
sad and so emotional. But it's interesting you said that because I was told that my mother's soul contract was up and that like no matter what we would have done that she was going to die one way or another at that time. It was just her time.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that. So like maybe that's right. Maybe Dave was there to help them get to where they needed to go and then they completed the mission and he could go cuz he'd been sick for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I know that for our situation and what
Mhm.
I've just come to accept about my brother passing, I don't think a contract was up, but I think that he was ready. I think
Mm.
that he was ready and I think that he was in a space in his life that he was ready to go. He had definitely, which, of course, as my brother, we all have experienced a lot of loss in our family. But I just believe that where he was at spiritually, where he was at mentally,
Mhm.
emotionally, he was tired and I think he was ready to go, and
Yeah.
I realized that the older I get and the more people pass, the more you feel like your loved ones are on the other side versus this side, and you really get to, miss them, and
Mhm.
so I think that, we'll never know till we're over there, but I definitely feel like, in that situation, that's what kind of helped me it was like he did what he needed to do to get them to that space, and now that fight was over, he had did
Mhm.
his part.
And maybe this is what this podcast is for right now is to show that it's okay to talk about grief. It's okay to talk about death. And I know like, especially in hip hop, like men especially are expected to be these very strong, very, like we don't show emotion type. But you know what? I saw a lot of tears being shed
Mm,
over Dave's passing and it's okay. It's a
yeah,
beautiful thing. And I think grief should be discussed more,
yeah,
with and you know what we had those little grief groups and those were so invaluable at that time, Like I didn't know who else to talk to. I was freaking out.
yeah. And when you're going through grief, a lot of people want to push you past. you know,
Mhm.
and with good intention, but until you go through it, you'll never get through it. You
Mhm.
know, I am on the other side of the worst of it, but there's still going to be days, you
Yep.
know. We're doing this right now, and and in a couple of days or whatever, we'll be going live on Colin's birthday. I never know how I'm going to feel when it comes, just like I don't ever know how I'm going to feel when Mother's Day or my mom's birthday comes up. Sometimes some years are good because something makes me feel just grateful that they was in my life. And then some days I'm like, just like even with Collins, like sometimes I don't scroll a lot on social media because sometimes there's going to be a post that I'm not expecting and I don't know how I'm going to react to it.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm like, oh man, that's cool that, somebody was thinking of him or thinking
Yeah.
of whatever. And then sometimes it's like, I just shut down, you know?
I'm like that with music too. Yeah,
Yeah.
like if you hear a certain song, you're just like, I'll have to skip it because I know what it's gonna do to me. And it's
Hmm.
interesting because just today I was talking about how right around this time is when we started to figure out my mom was sick. And so from like, and then she was admitted to the hospital March 29th. So from March 29th to May 11th, when she died, like this is such a weird time. And it's like my body's like remembering that. And like anytime I can just be triggered and just cry.
And I think that sometimes we don't see it as it's happening. It takes us a minute to process. And when we're looking back, that's when we recognize it.
Mhm.
I know that for me, I noticed that from the time we had came to visit in June to the time that he passed, he was kind of almost like looking back, I felt he was starting to distance himself from me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like we used to talk a lot. We used to because he had started working like a job at night. So I would call him while I was at work at night to make sure he was
Mhm.
still up, that type of stuff and mess with him. And I started noticing just like a little bit of pullback.
Mm.
And I just feel like it's weird whenever we look back at when certain people pass and we think about that time around it, we'll notice little things where
Yep.
like it was like they're almost preparing us to be here without them.
Yeah, one of the last times the last time my mother came here to Colorado to visit me was February 2019, and, I knew something was wrong. I just knew something was horribly wrong, and we went to Boulder. She wouldn't get out of the car. She wouldn't, like, engage with us. I was holding her hand at one point in the back seat, and for the first time, she felt, like, fragile to me, and this is a very strong woman. I got my personality from this woman. I feel her, but she's so far away. She's right next to me, but she feels so far away, and I knew something was wrong, and then right around this time, 4 years ago, I had a root canal, my first root canal, and I was all nervous about it, and my mom didn't check on me, which is, like, not normal, and I was like, "Something's up." That was another sign. All of a sudden, she was at home napping during the day. My mom's like a powerhouse career woman, publicist, on TV, on freaking radio all the time. She's sleeping in the middle of the day. Like, what the hell is going on here? And then, I guess one of the last things she said to my dad before she went into the hospital, she said, "I don't wanna go in there. They're not gonna let me go." And she was right.
Yeah,
It's like she knew,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And
So
it's hard, because I think that we start going through so many different emotions
mhm.
because then we're like, we should have, could have, would have, all that stuff, and we can't. And I know that's what you're doing to yourself right now. Like it's for certain things are shown to certain people. Because the thing that used to wreck me was at the time that Collins passed, I was working night shift. I had just stopped, the RN program I was in had just completed, but we were still studying, getting ready for our boards.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really on Facebook like that in the morning to notice that he hadn't posted.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm talking to Van Silk and Raheem from the Furious Five and Rick Milan and all these people, and they're like, we knew something was wrong because he had not posted. And I'm like, I'm his
Wow.
sister, and I didn't know that. I'm just going through life, like everything's okay. And then I get the call, but everybody else knew something wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really kind of go through
Yeah.
my thoughts and my feelings about that, and was like, it's good that I didn't, because I would have never made it. If
Mm-hmm.
it would have wrecked me, just even the thought that something was wrong.
Can I ask you guys something too? I mean, being related to somebody who is a hip hop legend, I mean, obviously helped start the Ghetto Boys. Everybody knows him as DJ Ready Red, right?
Right.
But you guys know him as Collins, So like, how is it when people come up to you and they're like, they don't know him, they're just like fans or whatever, but they're like, we miss him. You're like, you miss him.
I honestly, because my brother was so big, like literally and figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
He was such a big personality, a big guy, whatever, that even outside of hip hop, he was that person.
People
So
loved him.
when people were messaging me, like, I can't even tell you how many people I had to console over the phone. Like you were talking about men crying, like grown men was calling me boo-hooing on the phone when he died, because they was like, you don't know, like I haven't seen him in this long, but we talked every day, and I was sitting there like, how does he have time to talk to all these people like on a regular basis? It didn't make sense. But my brother has real friends that he's never met in real life. There's a young guy on Facebook that he met on MySpace years ago, and you could not tell me that this was not like his little brother, because that's the type of relationship they have. Shout out to Roderick. This was his personality, So I, it's like, yeah, as the little sister, I'm like, no, you can't miss him like I miss him. But he was so many things to so many people that I'm grateful and I'm thankful that we got to share him with the
The
world.
world.
And that they got to really see who he was, beyond the Ghetto Boys too.
Did you ever realize, like, when your uncle is like famous, did you remember like picking up on that ever?
The moment that I think they realized it, because no, okay, go ahead. Oh, you were okay. Well, go ahead, Ciarra.
No, I did not. Like, of course, like one of the things I remember is just like, I don't know, every year we would get these birthday posts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we would be on his Facebook and we'd be like, oh, he about to get friend requests from people who have no idea. Like, these people, they love him, so they're gonna try to be friends with us. And I'm like, I know these people. Like,
So they're trying to get to you through like association. Oh
it's
man.
like, what people don't realize is like he's very like overprotective. So he would be like, who's trying to add my niece? Who is trying to
Good.
I never like DJ Ready Red is like a different thing that I've ever seen, because it's always Uncle Collins.
Uncle Collins.
It's always the uncle who would call us and he would do his Michael Jackson voice, or he would call us.
And he was so good at it. It's sickening.
What? Do you have that on video? Do you have a recording of that?
God I did, because
my God.
and he could go through multiple personalities within one program.
Yes.
That's
okay,
so
so
awesome.
He could do, his Bruce Lee, like, it was, and of course
That's
he was
awesome.
great at doing Darth Vader and different people, but yeah, he could flow through it. If he had never got into hip hop, he could have easily did something in Hollywood, like making
Like a
sound effects
voiceover
or
actor or something.
something. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, let me ask you this. With becoming this person who does take on the responsibility to make sure these stories are told, how does that take a toll on you? Because I know that's a big emotional load to carry.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. And I don't think that it really kind of sank in until Trugoy. I mean, to be honest, because what was weird about it is that I literally just talked to him, and then he had all this stuff coming up. This year was going to be so huge for Daylaw. And then all of a sudden he's just gone. And it was just like, God. And I keep getting very close to some of these people. And I know that as time goes on, I'm going to start losing a lot of them. And I've lost some really good friends already. Like, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Black Alicious before, but they're based in the Bay Area. And Gift of Gab was like one of my best friends. And he was on dialysis for like 7 years waiting for a new kidney, right? He finally gets a kidney, and then COVID hits, and then all of a sudden he's dead, like just gone. And that one was really tough. And then my other friend, Wake Self, he did a lot of songs with Gift of Gab's Zumbi from Zionai, who's also gone, by the way. He was killed in a drunk driving accident. And then it was just like one after the other. And I see a therapist for this. Like, I had to start going to grief counseling, and I had to start really dissecting these things in therapy, because I don't know about you guys, but after my mom died, like for the first 6 months, I was so angry. And I did not expect that. I didn't expect to basically turn into like a different person. I didn't even recognize myself. I was so mad, and I had nobody, or so I thought, to talk to. Like, I was starting to bottle it all up. And I was like, okay, I need to take action, because this isn't me. And so that's kind of when I started doing the groups. I started seeing the grief counselor, and I started seeing my therapist really heavily. With Trugoy, for some reason, like, he's not that much older than me, and it's like, it's starting to hit me. Like, I just started blood pressure medication the other day.
I saw.
Yeah. And I'm like, holy fuck, like, I'm in my 40s. Like, how did this happen, right? And it's kind of the first time I'm really kind of grappling with my mortality and like getting older, and it's a little tough right now. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
No, that is exactly why I wanted to do this. I wanted to be able to speak to those who are going through, maybe health issues, or just prevent somebody from having to go through them. Because over the last few years, the average like age for so many people from our generation and from the hip hop community has been in the 50s. That's crazy.
It's terrifying.
It's
Yeah.
extremely terrifying. I am 47, and I think about the fact that, like, I cannot imagine not being here in 10 years. And
I know.
that's just crazy to me.
And don't you think it's interesting too that, like, I mean, for me, my grandparents lived until their 90s, like well into their 90s. What is going on with this generation that we're dying in our 50s?
Well, I would be very interested to see, because just like you were saying about your friend, was on dialysis, gets a new kidney, COVID hits, now he's gone. We are still so early into COVID, and I feel like COVID was handled not poorly. Definitely poorly, because I don't feel like it became so spiritual, so political, that nobody really stopped to take the time to say, okay, this is serious. We need to like get a grasp on this and figure out what's really going on. So if you have something that can cause blood clotting, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
nobody wanted to really accept that that's what COVID was doing for a lot of people. And you have someone who has just either recently received a new organ. One of the things that they have to do is they have to take anti-rejection meds for the rest of their lives.
yeah, those
And so
too.
clotting is not going to be good for that new organ because it's going to cause issues. And so it will be interesting over maybe the next 5 years as, the dedicated medical professionals that really want to figure out what this did to people,
Mhm.
what the different articles and different studies that come out from it, because it's still just so much that doesn't make sense.
And
It's
I
still
think
so much that's
too, well, and I think too, and this could be a part of it, and we'll wrap up soon with this, but like I didn't exactly pay the best attention to my health and like what was going on. And I think so many people kind of live that way, like, oh, out of sight, out of mind.
Mhm.
This is really like I just got all my blood work. Looking good, guys. That's a good thing. I'm slightly low on vitamin D, but a lot of people are, so I'm taking supplements, whatever, whatever. But I think it's really important to start getting checked early.
Mhm.
And I know, like, had my mom been more on top of it, she would still be here. Like, I firmly believe that, you know?
Okay, so just my last question is how do you show up for yourself? Like in your own personal life, how do you feel like you show up for yourself?
Woo. Well, on this new journey of discovery, I have gotten myself a nutritionist, a personal trainer. I box 4 to 5 times a week.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I bike like hours outside because I love biking outside. I try to journal every day. The nutritionist and therapy, of course, but the nutritionist part is something I never expected to be so incredibly effective. Like, I thought I was going in there and she's going to be like, all right, you need to eat this many vegetables and this many fruits. No, 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 no. It's like a whole other thing where she's helping me with the thinking around food, body image, things that women go through where in society, you're expected to look a certain way, but maybe you don't look that way. So you struggle, and she's helped me so much. And that has been invaluable. Like, this is something I've needed to confront for the last 40 years, and I've been scared to do so. And so, yeah, I mean, getting my blood work, like I did it and I got the results and I read them. I'm going to my doctor. Like, I mean, I'm finally caring a little bit more about myself. And, this is a whole other topic, but I mean, I'll tell you, I got sober in 2006.
Mhm.
Prior to that, I was a shit show. And I did a lot of drinking, I did a lot of drugs, and I am lucky I'm alive. And I had my gallbladder out in '06 as a result. I almost died, and I don't take anything for granted anymore. And so I'm really trying to just be the best version of myself at this point while also caring for others. And I deeply care about you, Ada, and I'm getting to care about you because you're awesome already. And I love you and I want to like hug you. But yeah, I want to be there for the people who are there for me. And I want to make it okay to talk about these things. I want to make it okay to talk about addiction. I want to make it okay to talk about mental health,
Mhm.
grief, death, everything that we're experiencing. None of it should be off the table. And
None of it's off the table here. So
good.
anytime you want to have a conversation
Yeah, we need to
on that.
get those BPMs in.
I so appreciate you, and you know that the love goes both ways. And it's been so awesome getting to know you and just
Mhm.
being a part of your life and watching all the awesome things that you do. And just the random, like, we could be texting, but then you're like, oh yeah, today I interviewed Ice-T, or I went to go, walk, like what? But this is
Sh-
my homie. You know what I mean?
It's just my life, girl. It's just my life. It's a day in the life.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But before I let you go, please tell people how they can get in contact with you, how they can follow you, how they can support what you're doing, all the good stuff.
Okay, well, this is kind of ridiculous, but I am not verified on Instagram and I don't know why. So my my handle is at the real Kyle Eustice because I have about 11 imposters that like to ask rappers for money in my name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's great. So, and Instagram won't do anything about it. Shout out Instagram, do something. But yeah, I mean, that's the preferred way, I guess, to get in touch with me. I have over 12,000 articles on hiphopdx.com. I am currently on rockthebells.com, hitsdailydouble.com. I mean, you can find me everywhere, like where music is sold. No, just kidding. But yeah. Yeah. Dropping some beats. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. That's me.
Well, Kyle, thank you again for, just giving up your time, for giving up your talent, for all that you do for hip hop, for all that you do for me.
Of course.
And so just so appreciate you. And
who would have thought?
I'm so glad that we have this first show with you.
I know, me too. Like, I'm honored. And it's gonna be cool. We can like look back on this in several years and be like, I was the first guest.
Yes, because I need to go back and find when you do your, like Kyle's greatest like interviews, because I'm on the list. I need that in my life.
You are, yeah. I mean, I'll never forget it. Yeah, it was amazing.
Thank you for tuning in to Beats Per Minute podcast, where hip hop, health, and heart are in sync. To continue the conversation and receive updates on our next episode, follow us on all social media platforms at beatsperminute.pod.
Hello, little sister. How are you? Very proud of you and your accomplishments. Love you. Take care.